Hey guys, so I thought it would be super helpful to make a video on what ego backlash really is. And this is something that I've experienced a lot, and although I understand it fully and I can give you some pretty crazy insights into what it is, it's still just something that happens. And you understanding it is super helpful. It shortens it, but it's not your fault if it still happens, even if you get this. So a lot of this is kind of basically the real root of what I'm saying is let go of the one whose fault it is. So all addiction is I'm doing this thing, but I don't want to be doing this. And so often we create this concept of one who is addicted, one who is lacking willpower, one who has a problem. When in reality, the real healing of the addiction is to focus on what we do want. So if we're smoking, what we do want is health and to have a better sense of smell and to smell better or whatever that is. Saving money, like really focusing on the lifestyle that we want to live. And then we can clearly see that smoking doesn't like fit into it. And so rather than seeing it as something that we're giving up and focusing on something we're giving up, we just see like the clear what we do want. So when you realize that there's no self, you realize that you're drawing a line. So with the individual, the language is just so crazy. You'd think we'd have noticed by now that something was off. But with the individual is divided. So we believe that there's a border between us and other things. And where this border actually is, even philosophically, like, is it where the mind and the body meet? Is it this like imaginary line? Like, what is it? I don't know. But we believe that there's a line and we feel this separation. So when we think, we separate. And you can separate for good or you can separate for against feeling and feel yourself to be separate. And that is when you have activated the ego. So right now I'm doing one thing and I'm drawing an imaginary line which separates the screen in two by doing one thing. How crazy is that? So you are the one thing that separates all else into two. So when we start to see this, we realize that we are not we're not one thing and we're not two things, non-duality, not two. And you start to realize how incredibly silly the self is and how incredibly silly the actions the self takes to serve the self are. And the first instinct when you see this is to be like, oh my God, I'm so selfish. And to like sort of create this void or create yourself as a problem. When let's think about the thought, oh my God, I'm so selfish, I'm so foolish for this misunderstanding of a self, is a thought about itself. So rather than focusing on the love it wants to embody and feeling the love it wants to embody or like what what it really is, the wonder that it really is, it's still doing this action. And so this can come up and this can be an incredibly painful thing when you have a big breakthrough, when you have a conversation with somebody who really gets it and who like brings you along and challenges you. It's almost inevitable. Or whatever method you're doing, or even as an effect of having like studied and been deeply interested in this, but not necessarily having like felt the release of it. And it's such a strange thing how it's in feeling as well. So I had this myofascial massage yesterday, and she warned me that sometimes the body recognizes like the tensions and sort of reinterprets the sensations as something that is pain. So it doesn't know how to like deal with that not being there. So I don't know why this happens, but it's kind of an amazing thing that it does. One theory would be that pain takes us deeper into feeling. When we've been avoiding feeling, pain is like, ooh, you're not gonna avoid me anymore. And so this might be like part of the ego backlash, that you've had this understanding and it's time to integrate it and to understand it like beyond the level of mind into the level of feeling. And so the mind keeps going, keeps making this action, and so in feeling, it feels awful because feeling is being disregarded in that instance. And that's just one theory. So I decided, and I had a whole lot of things like clear up to allow me to be able to do this. But I'm gonna start offering hour-long Skype sessions, and unfortunately my time frames for doing so are somewhat limited. I'm in Eastern Standard Time, and it will mostly be mornings, but I can be somewhat flexible. And my real aim for doing this is to help people with ego backlash and to help people who feel as if they regret getting on a spiritual path and aren't feeling the relief. They're still understanding with the mind and not feeling what they want to feel. So sometimes having somebody there to help you to refocus gets you out of your patterns of thought. And sometimes having somebody to talk to, you create a separation or you create them as being above you, and then that kind of increases the felt separation that you wanted to deal with. But ideally, it's like the verse in the Bible that I've always absolutely loved and have felt and experienced when I've been like contemplating these matters, no matter what my level of understanding was at the time. Where two or three are gathered, there I am with them. There's a shared understanding and a connection that happens, and that's what I selfishly want to experience and want to help other people to experience. And so I'm not finished. I'm not a master. I'm not going to be charging anything for the sessions for a while. Again, I have somewhat limited availability, but I don't know yet. I don't think it will be that much of a problem. So please, if you want someone to talk to, I know how like important it is and how incredible it can be to talk to somebody who shares this kind of understanding, and how hard it can be to find people in your life who understand this. And of course, there's a disclaimer. It does not replace like medical help and talking to an actual counselor and having somebody in your real life to talk to. But I feel like I've had so much help, and I've been incredibly inspired, especially by Phil from Actuality of Being, and done sessions with him. And he's been there when I've been dealing with ego backlash. So I really want to pay it forward. So please contact me. I can be awkward as heck. So if you're like anxious about being awkward or anything like that, please don't be. It's good, and that's all part of what we're seeing through. So, like with this understanding that there's no selves, conversations are an incredible way to focus. And it's like language itself is a way to focus. And if you think about it, what's the most frequently used word in the English language? It's the. And what purpose does the serve but to point to? And so when you start to stop making the separation and you start to learn to focus, that's where the magic is.